Oh, all right. I'm recording right now.
Great. I'd like to call the December version of the Airport Commission meeting to order. And with that, Mark, the first item on the agenda is proof of posting and notice.
It is posted on the bulletin board at City Hall. I presume at the airport, as always. Rich always does a nice job with his staff of doing that. It's on our website, which is you see on your screen. And we sent it out via our usual listserv on Tuesday morning via Notify Me.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is the public comment section.
Why don't we confirm who's present first, John, if you don't mind, just for the record.
Absolutely,
So
go ahead and call the roll.
We have John, David, Robert, Kevin, Ray, I see Luke is there, and but I don't see Michelle. Michelle, are you here? So we have 6 present.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
Great. So the next item on the agenda is the public comment section. I'd like to keep it regarding the agenda items if possible. And so Mark, you want to control this section, 3 minutes each?
Sure, I see one hand up from Susan West.
Okay, am I muted? No.
No.
I'm Susan West, 3542 John Muir Drive in the city of Middleton, and I represent District 6. I got an email today from one of my constituents, Cassia Shaw, and you should be getting the email from her. I wanted to be sure her comments were conveyed. She is concerned about some planes coming over rather low over Middleton Hills and extremely loud. I've got to admit, I noticed such a plane about a month ago on a weekend where it looked like it was just right above my neighbor's house. I know it was higher than that, but I saw more of the underside of the plane than I've ever seen. Her concern is in terms of being sure the system for reporting complaints is improved. I don't know exactly what she wants. I would like for the people that run the flight schools, or even for Rich to tell pilots that if people are flying extremely low, it's not helping the citizens' impression of the airport, because Cassia did mention it felt like she was being retaliated against. So if you could just warn them that try to stay up as high as they should, because we don't want that impression. And I think that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Jenny Pavlovich is next.
Hi, I submitted a lot of noise complaints for November because there was an increase in repeated overflights in my neighborhood, and it's cause and effect. I didn't even really have time to report all of them. So my report included 17 of 32, which was 53% was Maury Airplane Company, which 6% was Capital Flight, 6% was Badgerland Aero, 6% was PT Air, and the other 29% were one each for different aircraft. Most of the Maury reports include circling repeatedly over Hickory Woods, with sometimes 2 or 3 planes circling at once. So at about 10 overflights per hour for each plane, those numbers really represent about 170 overflights, not 17. And I know these are training flights. This included a Sunday morning when I was trying to participate in my cousin's memorial service. It included several days when I was participating in work meetings, and it even included Thanksgiving Day. So there was no break for the neighbors on a holiday. We know that we'll hear every plane that takes off, and we know that we live near the airport, that's going to happen, and that to train pilots, you're going to do touch and goes, but you don't have to fly tight circles around our houses and concentrate all the noise burden on one part of a neighborhood. The Hickory Woods neighborhood was formerly marked orange in the pilot manual as a noise sensitive area to avoid overflights, and it's still a noise sensitive area. And why was the orange marking removed from the pilot manual? I don't know. But when the airport states that it has a voluntary noise abatement program and over 60% of noise complaints involve training flights from the 2 flight schools that use the airport the most, there really is no effective noise abatement program. So when you say that participating in noise abatement is voluntary and the airport manager's planes don't participate, continuing to circle over the neighborhood over and 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 over in an hour, and often 2 or 3 planes, there's no noise abatement program, and that needs to change. So earlier this year, flight patterns were changed in response to citizen input, showing that flight schools can operate with respect for the neighborhoods. I'm not trying to put the flight school out of business. And one main reason there's an increase in reported overflights from last November is that we now have the ability to identify tail numbers through tracking software. And last year, many complaints were automatically dismissed without being reported to the AC because the planes couldn't be identified. So this is not a conspiracy. It's your neighbors expressing concern and frustration and asking for a real noise abatement program, not a fake one. And the complaints represent cause and effect. And when neighbors' concerns are mocked or ignored and you just state that people should not have moved here, you're really not helping anyone. You're not nurturing good relationships between the community and the airport. And I personally am not trying to put anyone out of business. I just would like to not have planes circling over my house. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Appreciate it. Mark?
I'm looking through the screen. I don't know that I see any other hands up.
I would like to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. This is Kathy Wolf. I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to reiterate what Jenny Pavlovic was just saying, because we live 2 miles out from the airport. We are right on one of the flight plans, and yet planes will circle over our house over and over and over and over. And there just is rarely a break on this, and it's all hours of the day and night. We can hear it inside of our house. I am not adept at technology, so I have not made a point of trying to, I've kept track of a number of these, but I have not made a point of trying to use the system. Number one, because I'm not very good at technology. And number two, when complaints have been made, the people complain that they feel targeted, that in fact their homes even get more noise. And it's already at such a level for us that it's just trying to run outside, catch tail numbers, write down every plane that goes over. You know, it's the amount of stress that you are causing for people with really not pursuing something real in terms of noise abatement, where people there has to be more than just voluntary compliance, because if people do complain, I am not unconvinced that we don't have additional flights over our house. And there will be planes following each other. The free ride plane will come right over the tops of all of our houses along the road. It just goes on. And so it's not a single player, but it just continues. There is not a consciousness of concern at all for people. And I think that's frankly reflected as well in having a master plan during the worst pandemic our country has ever seen. People don't know how to use a lot of the Zoom technology. I've had to call in on the long distance number a number of times. And the priorities right now of wanting to get involved in such a contentious process where you risk being publicly humiliated in the newspapers and online and all of that, to add that additional stress right now for people. I think it's just really poor community relations, and I realize you're going to plow forward, but I would like to express concern for the many people who have attended meetings over the past year, dozens and dozens of people. And you say, oh, we've got 8 complaints, or we've got 3 people on the line. You know what? People are dying, you know, and you've got to push forward with this plan when everybody is so wrapped up in trying to stay safe and to keep their businesses open. All this focus on this airport when all of our businesses in Middleton are going under. I just don't really understand the priority of the city with all of this. So anyway, I know I always complain, but this is reflective of many, many people who have attended many, many meetings, the AMPAC, the Airport Commission, and all of those people are just, I mean, you're banking on attrition, right? You're just going to burn everybody out so that they won't show up anymore. And it's just, it's really poor timing to move this forward. It's poor relations with town of Middleton and town of Springfield, and people won't forget. This is not going to be forgotten, and I can't imagine why this cannot wait until after we get the vaccine that's right around the corner. So that's it, and I'll take my comments off.
Thank you very much for your comments. Mark?
May I have a comment, please?
Hang on, there, at least on my screen, I have a Deb Neumann with a hand up.
Sorry, I don't see that.
It just
Yep,
went away.
That's me.
Okay,
That's
there.
me.
Yeah.
Hi.
So hi.
I just want to comment on Susan West's constituents' comment. And you probably all know me. I live 3 miles west of the airport. I like to be a good neighbor, and there was a flight that just went over just now, and that's fine. It was fine. I don't mind those kinds of flights at all, but some of the flights that come over are jaw-droppingly low. And I'm just going to keep it really short. And I have a flight app too, a flight tracker app, and because I try to just provide documentation of what it is that we're talking about. We're not being difficult, but really, if I'm outside in my garden and I have to go in the house, find my phone, turn it on, do my code, find flight track app, put in the Middleton airport, and by the time I get it all up, the airplanes usually has already landed. So I just, please just keep an open mind. There's a lot of us that are fine with the airport being all good neighbors and all of us learning how to live together. But there are some very low flights that go over our neighborhood that are pretty intrusive, and we're just worried that there will be more, and people, again, not following what you have asked them to do as far as protocols, as far as approaching the airport and noise abatement. So that's all I want to say. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Mark?
Anybody else wish to speak?
Yes, please, may I?
Sure, just identify yourself, please.
No, thanks. Last time you were on here and identified myself, y'all buzzed my house at 7:30 in the morning. I have cancer. I was up all night bleeding. I had just fallen asleep and you buzzed my house, maybe 20 feet off the roof. Thanks for that. So I just have a quick comment, if I may, or a question for you. I've never really heard any respectable answer. This is a little new, perhaps. We're in the process, because of our home business being severely impacted by what you are doing, which you apparently don't care about, but we are severely impacted. So we're putting in soundproofing into our home. The total cost will be maybe $10,000 or so. Now I know that on the east side, they are truly a good neighbor airport, and they do have respect for their neighbors. and they put in a lot of sound abatement for the neighbors that were severely impacted. And my understanding as time goes on, they will expand that area and include sound abatement for those houses. Now, as you've already heard tonight, many people are severely impacted. Those of us with cancer, little kids, kids in school, home businesses. You obviously don't care, and that's not for me to really worry about at this point. But I'm wondering if you are all considering the financial burden that you have placed on us, not as a good neighbor, because that's a fallacy, of course. That's 1984 talk. Have you considered the financial impact that you placed on your neighbors for quality of life, health issues, school issues for little children, and many others? Many others, you know, that are being impacted adversely by this. And I've heard other people speak that I, for instance, personally will have my house value lowered by 30% by all y'all. Thanks much for that. I haven't heard a response of any kind from any of you concerned people as to what you're going to do about that. So you're taking away our quality of life, impacting severely health, psychologically, and then taking away what we have worked for all of our lives, contributing to the town in taxes. You're taking it away in one fell swoop. Thank you much for that. I'm sure I'm not going to get any kind of an answer to that, but I just wanted to put that out. Hope that you're considering that. I doubt it, but if at any time we could have any kind of answer to how you're going to help us out financially for the impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
I have David Bryce or Barb.
Next.
Yep. This is David Bryce talking. Middleton, 7329 Summit Ridge Road, which is that ridge right just south of the airport. And I think I've talked before about the impact of the noise, as reiterated previously. But my questions tonight are, it doesn't appear that most of the planes that are flying low over our neighborhood, or even low with takeoff and landing in everybody else's neighborhood, including the city of Middleton and on the approach from the east, really are within this noise abatement, whatever it is, program. And actually our noise has actually increased. So really that noise abatement, whatever it is, or program is really not being effective. And most of the ones that I turn in as complaints really fall within the guidelines of the noise abatement program. So I'm calling for a reassessment of this noise abatement program and to bring that up again and design a program that's going to be useful for the impact that it has on the town and the neighbors, both in the city of Middleton and the towns of Springfield and Middleton. The other issue I want to bring up is the road. As you know, Airport Road is getting busier as more people move into the area, especially west of the airport. And it's been shown that there's about almost 10,000 cars per day there. And with the north-south runway, part of the Mead and Hunt had noted that about 79% of that runway protective zone, including that particular runway, was outside of the airport property and included the road and the land south of Airport Road. My question is what is the purpose of a runway protection zone if it's can't protect the runway? there was a recent crash of a Cessna one engine in the Los Angeles area. And the guy basically couldn't make the runway for one, I'm not sure what the reason was, but he crashed before he got on the runway. And he basically went into houses and wires, and he was killed. Unfortunately, nobody else was. I still think that this is a setup for a disaster. And I think that we're going to have to look at the configuration of that runway and to actually improve the safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mark, is there anyone else?
I think I saw Susan West with her hand up.
No.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It just wasn't.
You only get one time.
Yeah, I know. I don't see any other hands up, but I'll lower your hand, Susan.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, we'll call that complete, the public comment section, and move on to the reports.
Well, okay.
So my report for today is that the snow removal equipment, we should not plan on that anytime for this winter. It's still this still has to be approved by the FAA. All the documents are in. There's another meeting on the 18th, and they will keep us updated on it, and I will keep you up on it. The runway lights, the approval documents are with the executives of the state of Wisconsin, and they have to be signed, and then we can let the contract. We have the bids, and that will be done. We'll instead of the financials, I'll just bring it up here. Where sometime by the end of January, all our account and the transactions need to be audited because there's so many money moving in and out. Frankly, Josh said it's almost beyond his scope. So he's going to ask finance to take a look at it and to make sure we have a proper reconciliation of the accounts. So those are the three things that we've got going on with Bureau of Aeronautics. And with that, does anybody have any questions of those items? Okay.
John, did you say that would be in January? Is that when you said the timeline?
In January, I've asked for a meeting with the Bureau of Aeronautics to reconcile the financial accounts. And they said they couldn't get to it probably until the end of January. Snow removal equipment, don't plan on it this year. And then we're waiting for the governor's office to sign the approval for the runway lighting. So those are the three major items. Okay, got that?
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, with that, let's move over to Rich.
Okay, and then whoever had their phones taken care of, very good. All right, I'll just do a quick summary of our manager's report. Again, neighbor relations. Again, October 30, November 30, 66 noise or low flying aircraft complaints. There were 14 the previous month. And despite what Dr. Pavlovic said, we would never dismiss a noise or overflight complaint simply because they could not determine the aircraft registration or even a description of it. We always document all of that, everything that we receive. Okay, yeah, 2 individuals, total of 52, 34, and 18 respectively, 4, 3, and then some individuals. Again, it seems when looking at this, most of the people are indeed flying the voluntary noise abatement procedure. Now, for a little historical reference, and this is the way it was set up originally when Hickory Woods first came in, and it's always been, or should always be there. It is the voluntary noise abatement procedure is to avoid low overflights over noise sensitive areas, not overflights with the power back and at pattern altitude. That has never been part or wasn't part of the original noise abatement procedure. So yeah, there'll be some people flying over someone's house. You have to fly over someone's house to operate in this airport. We are doing our best to follow those procedures. So yeah, a lot of emails, a fair bit of use of the city website, and then some direct phone calls. Now, I know one individual, and this is the second time in about a year's time that someone has belligerently come into our office, and our weekend office manager again felt very threatened. She's a mid-70s, relatively small person or woman, and she felt that she felt very threatened, let me put it that way. We just happened to have an off-duty police officer on who could see quite clearly what was going on and moved to get a little closer. Also, apparently was looking hard at the fellow while he was doing this. So yeah, I don't know who it was. He left, and that's fine. The office manager has been instructed to simply call the police next time this happens. And I don't care how frustrated you are coming in and bullying someone behind the desk of a fixed base operation that can't really do anything about it is not acceptable. Simply not acceptable. Okay. No accidents or incidents on the field. We continue to do our online safety seminars on a monthly basis. I'll be doing one this month on safe pre-flight, details to go through. Ground school, we have one more session that's done very well online. We're happy to have done that. Now, couple things about low aircraft over areas that seem a distant out. If you are flying an instrument approach procedure, you may be lower than standard over the Middleton Hills area. That's the VOR runway 28 approach. You may be lower than what you pattern altitude out over about 3 miles west of the airport if you are flying the localizer or the RNAV runway 10 approach, that is going into the east. These have been approved by the FAA. The altitudes are definitely safe, if somewhat lower than pattern. Now, when I'm teaching my students, I put a hard altitude of 1,900 feet on for noise abatement. They can go down, it is not the same as going right down to the minimums, but it is sufficient for our training purposes. Other instructors do not accept that, and will have their students and or people practicing to stay current go down to the actual minimums. That's at least my interpretation, or that's the best explanation I can come up with for people being lower than pattern altitude out over these areas that far out. Now, we did our standard NOTAM, notice to airmen, of closing the 0119er grass runway. This is not because there's any safety issues inherent with the runway itself, simply because winter operations, we're going to have snow. We do not plow that runway. We cannot guarantee that the grass isn't soft. So it is up to pilots to determine whether they wish to use that runway, and it is landed on risk. But there's nothing illegal about landing on a closed runway. So we'll still see operations throughout the winter on that runway. It's at the moment it's perfectly fine, but this is just our standard operating procedure for noting that runway closed from, again, April, or it'll open up again in April or whenever it firms up. At the moment, it's perfectly usable, but we've just done this for housekeeping. All right. Snow removal equipment, again, what we have has been gone over. We'll probably be surprised on our first big snow removal day, but at the moment, we feel like we're about as good as we're going to get. And let's see. Oh, on the Swift Fuel terminal, we have not gotten a decent quote or any quote back cost-wise as to what that might cost to install. Again, I think I mentioned it, we had 7 people out of the 100 based aircraft who expressed an interest in purchasing it, so not a huge market for all of that. And the noise abatement procedure that we have now is designed to not focus all of our turns directly over that power line, and at the 2-mile mark out Airport Road in crossing, it is climb off to the west, northwest, excuse me, to avoid the houses directly on top of the hill to our in line with the runway. Get to pattern altitude, which is 1,900 feet MSL, mean sea level, about 1,000 feet above the airport. Throttle back and then turn, and we will turn at that whenever that happens to occur. This spreads out actually the number of houses that people are flown over. It doesn't concentrate everything over that power line corridor. So we're doing our best to run with that. And again, it's about all we can do. I think that's about all the notes I have on it, at least.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Does any of the commissioners, do you have questions of this material from Rich?
Hi, this is Dave Lorman.
Hey, Dave.
I grabbed some data, about a year's worth of flight activity out at the airport. This is from actual in-cockpit ADS-B altitude recording equipment, so it's non-pressurized. Pretty accurate stuff. I was just looking at it here. I pulled it up on my screen of about 30 flights, all departing to the northwest, following the noise abatement pattern, and all the turns made at pattern altitude within range that Rich specifically outlined. I would be happy to publish or share that data with anybody that's interested, but it's pretty clear stuff. And then I have some ground track data actually showing where the power lines are in various hotspots through the neighborhood, including, I believe, the elementary school and corridors along Airport Road. I could share my screen with you right now. It's kind of fascinating set of data if anybody wants to see it. Just a quick snapshot.
Are you able to grab the screen control or not? Otherwise I can.
Sure.
Pause mine.
I just go up to view option. I'm at the top of view.
Well,
oh, there it is. Share screen. Oh, it says you can't start screen sharing while
yeah,
the
that's
others.
what I wondered. Let me see if I can give you a temporary permission here.
You let me know if anybody wants to just see it briefly. Happy to share it.
All right, I'm here. I did something that should help you. See if you can do it now.
This will stop other sharing. Do you want to proceed? Yeah, here we go. And let's see. Let's try this. Let's see if this is it.
There you go.
Okay.
We don't see it yet, but oh, there we go.
Yeah. So you can't see a data chart point here, but these are, this is a year's worth of data. And if you start counting all these lines across here, there's about 30 different patterns all across the northwest corridor of the airport. So what you see here is a very clear departure patterns to the northwest. And then when I click on these data points that you see here, each one of these lists the altitude. And they're all reporting in at 1,900 feet. So even though you see a crossing over here, which is closer into the neighborhood, this is at 1,900 feet. And tracing the data back, you can see that it's a missed approach over the airport, where the airplane is coming over the airport runway at already 300 feet above the surface of the airport. So it's pretty obvious. It wouldn't even be a touch and go. It would be some kind of missed approach. And then you can see out here a long, perfectly straight line coming in. This would be an instrument approach. And even out here, where we make our pattern turn to the south at 1900 feet, this data point here, for example, airplane is reporting in at an altitude of 1,400 feet. So the airplane, as Rich pointed out, on a instrument approach is slightly below that pattern altitude to permit what the FAA, what is considered an ILS or a proper glide slope for coming in on a landing. And so I just thought you'd find it interesting. Yeah, so there you go.
David, I have a quick follow-up just to provide context. That data point on the instrument approach, is there another one to the west on that line? I don't think there is.
I just see one.
Well, there's one right there, maybe. Is there one right there? Right? Is there one right to the right?
Yeah, that's the same one. Let's see. That's
right. But what's the height there? Because that's the highest terrain west of the airport, the Bridle Ridge area.
Oh, okay. Let's
so yeah, that address Champions Run, that area is roughly around 1,125, like 1,100 to 1,150 feet above sea level.
Okay, so right there, altitude is 1,600 feet. So we're already 920. So we're 700 feet above the surface there.
Well, above the runway surface, but you're about 450 feet over the houses there. With that data point, that's roughly 450 feet over the houses. So I just wanted to provide the context because the terrain is about 250 feet higher. The highest point is roughly 300 feet higher than the airport.
Okay, gotcha.
So I just wanted to provide that for context because we've had people say over the years that planes are flying low over their home while they're higher in elevation, and a plane on instrument approach is flying lower than pattern altitude, as you noted. The instrument approach is a legal published approach used during inclement weather and when pilots are training on how to fly it, so that's why it might happen during the daytime when it looks perfectly nice out. It's not instrument conditions, but they're practicing it. And so that's why the planes are flying at that elevation.
Yeah, and I can assure you that this line you're seeing here is probably training flight. And these squiggly ones here, these are actually ground tracks when we're figuring out points along the neighborhood, to where as reference points in terms of flight activity. So, and again, these ones you see coming across the airport here, these are all at pattern altitude because the airplane was already somewhere else in the area coming into the airport vicinity, setting up, probably coming around for a landing this way. So, yeah, it's interesting data.
What is the source for this?
So this is from a Garmin ADS-B called a GDL50 unit. And it sits in the airplane, and it's always measures pressure, altitude, and uses GPS reference.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So those would actually have to be adjusted for pressure. They have to be adjusted for surface, for station barometric pressure.
This one, I didn't see any adjustment on it.
Yeah, because because I think the ADS-B is from the transponder, which is set at 2992.
Yeah, this is a portable unit, so it can be set for pressurized cabin or non-pressurized cabin. That's about it. Yeah. So, but it does appear accurate when looking at the data when the aircraft was on the ground. So like the reporting data when the airplane was on the ground was
up top.
I'm sorry.
I said if it's accurate on the ground, it's accurate up top.
Right. Yeah. It was within 10 feet.
Yeah, I think Dave we talked about it earlier. I think Dave's unit is a little different than your standard transponder that puts out on the pressure altitude of 2992. But yeah, also just for reference, the minimum on that localizer approach coming in from the west to the runway 10 is 1580. And if you are on the RNAV, then there's a glide path that takes you slightly lower, but it's graduated. So you're higher further out, as you know, but for the layman, higher further out, and then you slope down. And as you get closer to the runway, you get lower. So, but yeah, and they get checked about twice a year by FAA, goes through the area, looks for obstructions, make sure that there's enough clearance on the houses, on the power lines, and all the other obstructions.
Great.
Yeah, and I should qualify this. This unit is, you know, probably I don't know what this type of unit costs, but the equipment inside the airplane is $20,000 versus this piece of equipment, it's about $800.
Okay, great. Anybody have any additional questions or comments? Okay, great. Thanks, David.
John, before you move on, I just have a question. Is Michelle Bond present? I see Michelle's iPhone. Is that Michelle Bond?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
You've been here now since basically the beginning of the meeting. I just wanted to recognize you.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Continuing on, then we're going to look at the meetings. That's the next item. Has everybody had their opportunity to look at the meeting? Let's just take a couple of minutes, take a couple of minutes for you to review it.
I'm having trouble seeing, there we go. Let's try this again.
The minutes are not overly long. It was a simple meeting.
This is Robert. I had already reviewed this, and I would make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the November 5th, 2020 meeting.
This is Luke. I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a first and we have a second for the approval of the minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'd like to call a motion acceptance of the minute to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same time. Motion passes. Next item is the airport financials. If you will look to that page, the notable item, as you can see, it's under grants and income, $44,284. That's a reimbursement for our CARES money that we received in October. And then I was just looking down below here. I saw that it looks like we had some insurance payment that came due. Must be the appropriate time of the year for that. And then outside services, there's looks like $1,700, and that's typically goes to legal fees, although I'm really not sure what we've had Larry do. Maybe Mark, maybe you know. Maybe it might, is it associated to AMPAC or something?
Anytime the city attorney is consulted on airport matters, he charges that to the airport fund. That gets, and then Mike Davis pays that.
Yeah, the reason I say that is I don't think the airport commissions actually referred anything to for a legal opinion.
Not in recent months, no.
As as the voice of AMPAC, I can say that it is more likely than not that was probably due to AMPAC costs related to the airport rather than airport commission costs.
Yeah, airport operations. Okay, so as you can see, we're up to the ending available balance now is $433,831, and hopefully we will continue our trajectory. Does anybody have any questions on the financials? Not probably till the February meeting will I have a reconciliation for the entitlement, and we need to have the BOA engage with that, and if Bill Burns is available, I'll try to set up an annual meeting where we can do a reconciliation for everybody. Next item up would be tree trimming of obstructions and runway approaches. Mark, that was something you were handling?
Yeah, so last February, I think it was, yeah, it says February here. We were contacted by Ponce Barber at the FAA. He notified us about 8 obstacles or obstructions, I guess is the term, which are all trees. Northwest, actually all directions from the airport. The majority are northeast of the airport on the hill on north of the Lexus dealership. I can't remember the name of the subdivision at the moment, but it's the subdivision northeast of the airport. And there were 5 trees that were penetrating the VOR approach, which is the approach that Rich Morey talked about earlier in terms of the flights over Middleton Hills when they're lower. That's the VOR approach. So those trees are extending from 1 foot to 62 feet into that approach surface. And so that's what you see on the right side there, from low, medium, and high priority, I don't know if that's priority, but high importance or high encroachment is what it is. And then the next tree down, the 6th one right here is, that is west of the airport on the Arndt property, just east of Capitol View Road, and that's located within a navigation easement. I just learned that more recently. And so that is something we have not wanted to trim any of these trees because they are oak trees. We didn't want to trim them during the growing season because that's a bad time to trim oak trees. And I should say, I don't know that these are all oak trees, but certainly this one is, as is the one on the to the north of the airport on the Rip farm. We have Mr. Rip's consent to trim that tree. And then there was one tree on the south of the airport on the Bletner property, which thanks to Rich's staff and Bob Bletner's consent, that tree has been removed. I have written to Ponce and have not yet received a response, updating him on the status of removal of these obstructions and updating him on the master plan process, which is of course doing a detailed inventory of obstructions as part of the master plan. And so I've asked for some time for that to be resolved before we remove trees. In case we don't want to remove trees or we wouldn't be removing trees altogether. We don't want to trim any of the trees that if the approach is going to be going away or something is changing as part of the master plan. So I just, in the interest of being a good neighbor airport and sensitive to the neighbors, I was trying to buy some time to make sure that we know what the true impact is without at the same time losing any of the approaches we have, which is rightfully a concern of Rich Morey and the pilots. We want to make sure we don't lose any ground to the existing approach that has been in place for decades. Well, actually it's been in place since 2004, specifically in how it's defined in regard to this runway, but the approach existed on a slightly different alignment for decades before that.
So we trimmed all the mandatory trees that we need to protect our approaches?
I would argue these are all mandatory, and the answer then is no. So we have not yet, but I've asked him for an updated timeline or an extension so that we can finish the master plan and the detailed inventory that's being done as part of that. It's possible, according to Greg Stern, that it is actually the inventory work that Maiden Hunt already did. It's possible that that's actually what triggered this list. I'm waiting for confirmation on that.
Yeah, the only concern I have is, I mean, I don't know how long this master plan thing is going to go on. And these trees aren't going to get any shorter. So, I mean, at some point in time, we probably need to have a hard stop and just trim them.
Well, and the thing is, they're on private property and we don't have navigation easement. And so we need to work with the property owners, and, you know, that's likely to cause some concern, if you will.
So the issue is not necessarily just, it's more complex. It's not just the master plan.
I'm trying to, I've been approaching this from the standpoint of trying to make sure that we aren't doing something that in a year or two, if the approach goes away, and my understanding is VOR approaches are starting to fall out of favor, but I would defer to Rich or anybody else who's a pilot on that. You know,
didn't Long Rock just lose their VOR?
Yes, yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if we don't take care of this, that might precipitate the loss of the VOR, and we don't necessarily want that either. I'm just, you know, I would hate to go in and go to a neighbor of the airport and trim the trees, and then a year later the VOR goes away and it was for naught. I mean, that's my concern from a good neighbor, maintaining good neighbor relations. That's I want to make sure that this is something that is definitely a problem. And maybe I'll take my direction from the commission, obviously, but from a staff standpoint, that's been my approach, is to try and make sure that we know exactly what the outcome of the master plan is and what approaches are going to remain, how this changes with the master plan before we impact private property.
Rich, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, please.
Rich, you're muted.
Rich is muted.
We haven't heard a thing.
All right. Probably just as well. Anyway, I don't know that the master plan has anything to do with instrument approaches. Certainly, if we would realign, we aren't going to be realigning the 10-2-8, the paved runway. The grass runway is possible, but either way, those trees we already have permission to trim and have removed. Today, I noted that there was a cherry picker truck up along behind the Lexus dealership, and they were trimming trees up there. So someone's paying to have the trees trimmed. I don't know who that would have been, but it was interesting that they brought it in from, I think, the access road off the circle, and then just rolled it right in back. And it was up there, and they were doing some trimming. So that was interesting to note. I thought maybe
on Lexus property or on private property?
I believe it was on the private property along the up on top, up behind the Lexus dealership. It was right up on top of the ridge, right, just on the cherry picker was just inside of the tree line. So, and they were doing some work there. We have a duty, and this is part of our grant assurance, is to keep our instrument approaches paths clear. And that's what the city has signed and promised to do. So I don't know that we have discretion in that if we want to continue to make sure we get our money from the feds. So we have to pursue this. Yes, eventually the Madison VOR is going to go away. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I know that's one of the nav aids, the ground nav aids, that's destined to be abandoned. It still doesn't relieve us of the requirement to keep these approach corridors clear, as far as I can determine. If the feds had said, oh yeah, well, in 3 years the VOR is going away, so you don't have to worry about it, they wouldn't have sent this out. So obviously it's something that we need to be doing, and it's already almost going to be a year coming up fairly soon. So it's not like we jumped on this immediately, and I understand there was a lot of stuff that had to happen beforehand, but I think it's our duty and requirement to do what we can to get these trees trimmed.
I think I probably agree with you, Rich. Have we even asked these individual owners if they would have an issue with us trimming the trees?
No.
So maybe we ought to just, if nothing else, make an inventory. I mean, we did some aerial mapping, right? Rich, you or somebody did a mapping as to where the trees were.
Yeah, we know where they are.
Okay, and you know whose property they're on.
I don't have it matched with a name specifically, but I could do that quite easily.
And whether it be, Rich or, somebody from the city, just to make a courtesy call. And I mean, the people may have no issue. I think we talked about at a prior commission meeting that we would, make sure that we treated the people properly with respect to the trees. We weren't just going to hack them off. and, diminish the value of their property. But commissioners, what are your thoughts on it?
This is Robert. I would like to confirm that there's not like 2 or 3 others, which I know kind of at the beginning, Mark said, well, we were kind of waiting to hear from, I don't know if it's Ponce or Mead and Hunt, but somebody to confirm that this list is the complete list. So we don't like go make arrangements for 5 trees and then find out there's 2 more that we got to now deal with later. But if we could get that information, I agree with Rich and John that there's no time like the present to start reaching out to these folks and see if there would be any concern on their end if we go in and reduce, trim these back to the level where they would need to be for airplane safety.
Yeah, safety benefits not only pilots, but also the people on the ground.
Absolutely. So that's why, like I said, really my question about, making sure our list is complete is just for logistics side of it, to make sure we don't have to go in once and then go back in again, and ask the same landowner for permission to go take care of one other tree that was on this list. Let's make sure our list is complete. But then I'd say sooner rather than later, I would recommend we start reaching out to those property owners.
Other commissioners, do you have comments?
This is Ray. I agree.
You, Ray.
I agree with everything said.
So let me ask Mark and Rich, how do we, who and how do we talk to Ponce, or who do we talk to assure that this list is accurate? It seems to me that the FAA has never been bashful.
No
obstacles.
I think, John, I think this is an accurate list. We had the state come out and do a survey, and they marked, I think, every tree other than the one we'd removed as well. They had identified the same trees. So I don't think we have to worry about that. I mean, they'll come back in another year or 2, do another survey, and if there's something else that comes up, it's going to come up. We're not in a growing season at the moment, so it's not going to happen anytime soon. I'd say we just, we were given this information in February. If it had been, I'm sure the FAA in their infinite patience wanted us to have it done by March before the growing season started. That didn't happen. So I'd say we need to move on it, and I wouldn't worry about this being an incomplete list. I just do what they gave. The FAA tells you to do something, in my estimation, and dealing with them for the last 4 decades, you do it and you say, is there anything else, sir? But yeah.
I did, when I got this list, within a week or so, I reached out to Jim Rip, because coincidentally, Jim Rip, the property owner in Schneider Road, had already reached out to us about getting assistance with removing some of his trees.
Okay.
And so I had a dialogue with him, and I was on his property twice with his tree service. And the timing of getting the work done was already pushing up against the growing season. So I just did not have the time, and given all the other things on my plate at that point, to coordinate with everybody with possibly 5 different property owners east of the airport. Maybe it was 4 or 5 property owners to get everyone's consent, and likely some of them were going to be upset. I just wasn't able to do that before the growing. I just assumed that most of them were oak trees. Most of the trees in this area of that height are oak trees. Go ahead.
Are we in a period now to trim these?
Yeah, well, right. And so I'm dusting this off, and what I wanted to do was refresh this list, as Robert Burke just mentioned, to make sure that this list is the accurate list. And then the biggest concern I have is, what's the timeline for this VOR approach? If it's going away in the next few months, I just would hate to trim a tree and then have it, a short time later, it didn't need to be trimmed. I just, I'm trying to balance the private property interests with the airport. Obviously, I'm staff to the Airport Commission, so that's, you know, I'll take my direction from the Airport Commission, obviously. But I'm just telling you that's what I'm trying to balance.
The trees that you've identified, I don't think would impact the VOR approach as much as it would probably the RNAV 28. Rich? Because you're so much higher on the VOR, and you're really not in alignment, are you?
But they all say VOR. These 5 are VOR.
Rich, wouldn't what if the VOR went away? Wouldn't it be replaced with an equivalent GPS or something like that? Maybe you can comment on that.
It's possible, Kevin. We already have an RNAV GPS approach straight into 2.8. It's unlikely, but possible that they'd go in with that 25-degree angle approach. It's more likely to, well, it's easier for Madison to have them go directly over the airport as opposed to about 5 miles south of the airport when we're in alignment with 2.8. But I don't anticipate that happening. If the VOR, I have a letter somewhere with a timeline, a potential timeline, and if I remember correctly, all it said is that they were looking at removal of the Madison VOR, but I don't have a date on it. But they were asking for comments on the Lone Rock VOR, and then they removed it anyway. They obviously weren't listening to me. So.
But that's why this email, I put in bold this question to Ponce. Mm-hmm. That was my main concern.
And that may be outside of his realm of operations. I don't know that the FAA always, remember last time we spent a lot of time getting all set to trim some trees for the VOR 28 and then VOR 10, and then they decommissioned the VOR 10. So it was pretty clear to me that one side of the FAA didn't know what the other side was doing. So.
And that's why I'm not too worried about somebody coming after us, but at the same time, I want us to operate legally, and I get that. I understand the safety concern. So.
I don't mean to be critical of you, Mark. I understand you're doing your job as best you can. I'm just representing, I know what the FAA, their mentality is.
I mean, it seems to me that we should pursue it and start the conversation, if you will. And if between the time we start the conversation, the time that we actually do the work, we make an effort to find out if they're going to decommission it. If they don't decommission it, then usually I put that one to my ear. Can you mute some of these, Mark?
I am actually in the process of muting people who are not commission members.
Thank you. I'd make a motion, I guess, if we could get these people offline here. Kind of rude. If I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with the trimming of the trees and simultaneously making an inquiry to the FAA on the VOR approach or other trees. And, if we find out that we don't need to trim them, then we don't. But if we don't have any information, we proceed and we do trim them. Because I'm with Rich, it's an obligation. They didn't ask us to think about it. They just basically said, here's the obstacles and they need to be mitigated. So I think we need to mitigate them. So that would be...
This is Robert. I'll second your motion, John.
Okay. Any others would like to discuss this? Any comments, thoughts? Okay, with that, no comments.
So the motion is to proceed with trimming the trees, but simultaneously make an inquiry of the FAA.
Yes.
For what purpose again?
Determine if there's any additional trees or decommissioning of the VOR.
Okay, I did that.
Would change the schedule.
All right. I've done that. That's in front of you on the screen.
Yeah, but that was when, and when did they answer?
They haven't answered yet. This was a week ago I asked.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, it's going to take us a little bit of time to identify the people. And you know what, we can always, rather than just an email, let's pick up the phone and call them and see if we can get through. I quit sending emails to the government. I pick up the phone and call them.
What's the timeline for proceeding? That was part of your motion. It was to proceed if we don't have any updated information. So
I would proceed as soon as we have approval from the landowners. So I go to the landowner and say, we have a tree that's encroaching on the airport approaches. It's a safety issue, not only for people in the air, but the people on the ground. There is a possibility that one of these instrument approaches will be canceled and maybe it would need to be trimmed. But in the event that it does need to be trimmed, could we have permission? That's kind of the conversation as I would have it.
Okay.
So we have a first and we have a second. No discussion. With that, I'd like to call the motion to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. You know, about a year ago, which is the complaint reporting system. About a year ago, we spent quite a bit of time trying to put an online system in place. And it is consistent with the FAA's reporting data that's requested and required. And so we still have, it looks like, we have a lot of people that are using it. So the city's used 36 times. But yet we still have emails on 23 reports. And it seems to me that obviously the system works. We had, I asked Rich asked Deb to enter some of these. And it takes about, so the email ones ultimately get entered in. They take about 5 minutes each. So my question is, or thought is, if somebody can put all the data down in an email, why are they not just entering it into the reporting system? And the reporting system is designed to be a singular database so that if the FAA requests it, we can give them the data, but we can also map the data. So I'm wondering, do we quit taking email complaints and only allow for the online complaints? Because it seems to me kind of silly. If somebody can put them in an email, they have internet connectivity, and type all the data out, why they don't use the online form system. And so we're paying Rich or others to type all this stuff in, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So that's a thought that I've had, and I'd be interested in hearing what other people think about that. So commissioners, kind of what are your thoughts?
John, I think, you know, one of the advantages to this, the online, is that we're able to capture probably the most pertinent and most effective data. So I think that's what we should be really focused on using and implementing as far as these complaints, is that data is going to be most helpful in determining, you know, what sort of changes will we try to make or recommend to make in the future. My only concern is it accessible? I mean, is it easy to find? Can anybody get on? Is it easy to locate? And that may be a problem. Is it on, you know, that I don't have a problem finding it, but I know where to look. So that'd be my comment.
Yeah, just a little bit of follow-up to that. The email address information and the online information is basically the same. It's just we're having to key it in. So,
Okay.
but if there's an accessibility, I mean, the online system is actually a database. And if requested, we can give it to the FAA in digital form for manipulation.
This is Robert. I agree with what's been said about the accessibility thing. I think based on comments made earlier at other meetings, or I guess, yeah, prior in the year is what I mean.
Yes.
Some people still have accessibility issues in that I believe you have to log in still. You have to sign in, as you see here. Some people struggle with that as opposed to sending an email. There's no logins. I would probably vote against eliminating the email option at this time. I think we want to persuade people to try to use the online system because I think it's more effective at capturing the data. But I think the accessibility issue is a real issue at this point. One of the thoughts I had, not to switch gears, and we can certainly come back to the idea that has been proposed, but one of the ideas I had was whether there is some way with a when we get 40, 50 complaints in a month, 60, and then come back and say, well, we looked at them and there was, they were all, basically all flying within the pattern at the height they were supposed to. Is there, without dumping a ton of work on anybody, is there a way where we can know which ones were flying the pattern, and if there was one or two that could be flagged to say these two actually are questionable, the rest of these are not? And that would be helpful to me to understand if out of 66 or whatever we had this month, if we found that 64 of them were all definitely in the pattern, but here are the two that are maybe right on the edge, and I think that would be helpful. That's one thing that we could do with the data. Now, I don't know how hard it is to get that piece of information assigned to each of those 66 reports that came in. So I'll just throw that out there. It was just a thought I had.
Yeah, so let's stick with the online first, and then we can talk about that part of it. So what if we had, was there any reason why we couldn't have, like, you buy something online, you have a guest login, where we have a generic access point for people that they want to log onto the city site for purposes of making a complaint, and they just, they sign on as airport guest, I guess, or something of that nature. Because if you scroll down, Mark, we have the name and the address of the person and the location. So we're capturing the FAA's required data down below. The impediment is the shell that's put over the top of it by the city's software system that they bought. So I was thinking, well, maybe we just had a generic airport guest, and they could just come in on that and then complete the form. And then at the end of the form, as not only do you save it, they would have the ability to print it. I know a lot of people want to have their own, Radar 24 or whatever it is. They could print the form, they could staple their supporting data or whatever they have, and they could save it. And if the FAA goes through this and then calls on them, then they would have the data that they need. The FAA reporting does not contemplate information. They don't even take a video. Even if you had a video, they wouldn't take it, right? So, but not to say that I would dissuade anybody from saving their data. If they feel they have data that's meaningful, then they should archive it. And we're just not the one that does it for them. So anyway, that was a thought. I mean, is that an option, just to have like an airport guest login?
We'd have to ask Drew, right, Mark? Wouldn't we have to get input from Drew Montar?
Yeah, I mean, John, are you saying that you'd like to, so that people have this all filled in? Like for me, when I logged in, it has my name automatically filled in, and apparently my email address too. Well, these are optional fields. These are not asterisked as, this is in red, shows it's required. So somebody could leave this blank. Rich, I imagine that actually happens. But what's required is the location, although it's not even in red here. So I think what I've heard is the complaint from various people is that they wish that this only allows one complaint at a time. It doesn't allow 10 or 15 complaints. The challenge, I think, is that what's happening is people are wanting to report multiple aircraft, at one time, in one fell swoop. I think, as has been mentioned before by the airport manager, and I think I've mentioned it before too, the problem is if you report every airplane, I would recommend that people focus on the ones that are particularly stand out. I mean, we know that there's general aviation in this area, and there has been since the 1940s, and it's increased over the decades clearly, and houses have increased as well. So we know that there's this conflict that some feel exists between the airport and surrounding houses. But I think if we can focus on the aircraft, like Alder West was mentioning, there was one that stood out to her earlier this year at one point. And if we can focus on those, I think if we report every time a plane flies over, that it dilutes the effectiveness of the reporting. That's just my observation.
We have no control over that.
I know, I understand, but I'm just encouraging that, I live under the flight path too, and I notice some more than others. And the ones that fly over that I notice more, I'm always curious, what kind of aircraft was it? It doesn't, it's, some stand out more than others. So
if you look at the form, you're going to have to put in a different N number. You're going to, and
right.
The configuration, you're going to have to redo all of these things. And you're going to say you're going to report 15 at exactly the same place all at once? That's kind of a stretch for me.
Well, some people feel like that they need to do that because it's a concern for them, and I get that.
They can put in 15 records. The FAA doesn't have a composite record. They only have a single record. You get one record per aircraft per instant. That's just what it is. And so, we need to collect what's mandatory, and we feel like we don't want people registering, we can have a guest log on. If we feel like we need the name and phone number for a callback, we make those fields mandatory. I'm just trying to I'm trying to make it easy to get all the data in one place at one time, because I think that benefits both the community and I think it benefits the airport. Because if they say, well, we want Mead and Hunt to analyze all this data. This data, where is it? It's in paper, it's in voicemails, it's online. Where is it? It needs to have one single, my opinion, it needs to be one single place is the official complaint database. Now, the only thing I've heard is, and Cynthia was the one that I thought said it, was they objected to having to log on to the city system to log on again. And a guest log on would resolve that one. But that's just my thought.
Well, my 2 cents worth. One, we're going to always keep the phone line because there'll be people that don't have computer access or savvy. So when we get the phone reports, we can enter them. We write them down anyway. Unfortunately, the phone doesn't. We ask them for the data, but they aren't terribly forthcoming at times. Number two, for this to be relevant, we need an address. So people, even if they aren't registered, we need to make sure that we know where they are. not just an airplane flew over my house. Number three, it took our office manager all of less than 5 minutes to set up an account. So then she's already said it's not a huge impediment to go in here and fill this stuff out. Again, not sure. I'm fine with the guest registration. That's good if we can make it work, but frankly, it isn't that tough to do it the other way. And then the fourth bit is, people that do this, use this regularly are often will say such and such flew over my house 4 times in the last 20 minutes or something along those lines. So you can do more than one in this. And some people have even figured out how to put screenshots of their flight tracker software on here, which I thought was impressive. I think that's why we wanted a big deal was you couldn't attach the flight tracker screenshots to this form. Apparently you can, but I've only seen that once. But that's what the town chair was concerned about, why she wanted the email or why she was emailing me directly as opposed to before the email, city opened up an email account. Again, as you say, John, they can keep their own track, or that's public record. You can go back in and pick that stuff up. So.
Yeah, I guess the question I'm trying to get at is is there a good reason to cease taking email reports and just, I guess, do a bounce back or whatever, and just say it needs to be entered into the city? But, if that's something that everybody feels like we need all these options, but I don't know how we get all this data in one spot unless we have data entry personnel do the jobs that individuals could easily do themselves.
Sorry, I lost the screen. I'm doing this on a laptop I'm not used to.
Not a problem. Not a problem. And to answer your question, Robert, the problem is the pattern what people have a hard time understanding, but it's very clear from David's graph is there is no specific pattern. Airplanes performance varies. And so if you climb to an altitude, some planes get there sooner than others. And if at that time they throttle back and make a turn to the south, I'm departing 28 at this time, you're going to get those lines spread out further apart, north to south. So to say this one is in the pattern and this one isn't gets to be a real challenge. And do you really know which one is and isn't in the pattern? And the answer is you really don't.
That's helpful. Thank you, John. I mean, as a non-pilot, sometimes I just have to ask stupid questions to
There's no stupid
make
question.
well, there are, but that's how you learn, right?
Yeah, you saw the graphs. You can tell by the graphs. And the graphs actually exhibit the difference in performance.
No, that makes sense. Okay, well, thank you for kind of clarifying my thoughts on that.
Yeah, no problem. It's good. It's a good question.
And Robert, again, Richard Morey talking. The more we have, the more I have to go through all of these, the harder it is to actually winnow and sift what would, okay, that someone obviously didn't follow the procedure. They turned out before they should have, or with that person on downwind for the grass runway. It's very hard to sort out depending. So.
Okay, thank you. That's good information.
Any of the other commissioners have any thoughts or questions? I mean, is a change in procedure called for this time, or we just continue on as we can?
I would I mean, I don't have a clear path of what I might want to improve, but I wouldn't take away the email version at this time.
Any other commissioners? Luke, you're a council person. Do you have a comment? Are you muted?
He's muted.
Okay. How about you, David? David, are you there?
Yeah, me, Dave. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I'm really thinking just really more about workload placed on the staff at the airport. So, you know, working in line with trying to be a friendly community place, you know, don't want to put up too many barriers to people when they have an issue. But at the same time, you know, balancing that, I sort of defer to saying, you know, if Rich is saying this is a burden at the staff and they could, things would be improved if it was done in a very specific way, like an online form and no other options. Okay, I see where it's going. So that's really my thinking. As far as improving the form itself, I guess I don't know the exact data that the FAA wants. You know, would it be useful to put a form field in the box that would just be a simple numeric box? So when the person does log the complaint on that day, they can say, well, how many times did this incident occur during this time? And they just enter a number. So then theoretically, they don't have to enter it 5 times. They've entered a form once and they put the number 5 in it. I don't know if that would be helpful and streamline it from the citizen standpoint.
Yeah, the FAA requirements is basically 1 form per instance.
Okay, so then that won't help.
You can find the form online under FAA noise reporting.
Okay.
So anyway, that's for what it's worth. It didn't sound to me like there's any interest in anybody to make a motion or to make a change at this time. So I thought we hadn't done it for a year. And so I thought it was worthwhile to get it on the agenda.
Rich, when people have complaints, when they've said this happened numerous times, they're putting this in the complaint field, right? In the description, when this is happening X number of times?
Yes, that's what where they're putting it, Mark. Yeah. Or they, you might actually be able to list more than one N number also up on top. I'd have to take a look at some of them, but for the most part, there are, you know, it's one report at one time. The problem from my standpoint, and again, this is outside of my pay grade. You guys decide what you want to do and we'll do it. My office staff can enter these if you want to, but we're going to be putting that time down as part of what we're doing. But I will get a data dump on the 28th, just before the meeting, and there will be 25 or thereabouts this month reports all at once, and they are from the entire month mostly, or a fair bit of time. So they're certainly not timely. It's not something that I can go back at that, you know, on that day and go, oh, I remember that, and oh, that was someone from. It just complicates my ability to do anything about it, and there's little I can do other than contact pilots if there's obviously something egregious and say, hey, could you practice your IFR minimums at 1900 instead of 1560, or don't turn out, do your 300, don't turn right out over Hickory Woods while you're climbing out, or something along those lines. But if you just inundate with all of this information, and then it makes it very difficult to get anything meaningful out of it other than the canned response that goes back, because frankly, it overwhelms me. If you don't have an entire day to put toward dealing with this, I'm trying to catch the information while in my spare time between students, and have 25 reports to respond to in one day makes it difficult.
Yeah, that's kind of a different issue than entering them, right? Is what do we do with them after we get them? I did a little bit of math here. There are 23 reports. This one, they came email. Assuming they can be done, if they were done in 5 minutes, that's roughly 2 hours. If it took 10 minutes, it'd take 4 hours. So we're looking, let's call it 5 to 6 hours per month of work that we're asking Maury Airplane Company to do for data entry.
Hey, John, may I make another observation? And it may not be a popular comment, but it builds on what Rich said. If you see a certain type of aircraft and you hear from the airport manager that this pilot was following procedures, I would suggest that if you know, after a while you'll get a feel for how high the plane is flying and in the sky, and if you get the same response that there's nothing that indicates that this wasn't outside normal procedures, it may not be worth complaining about it. I understand that that for some people the aircraft bother you. I mean, I get that. Like I said, I hear many of the airplanes as well where I live. But if to be most effective, so that there isn't this, you know, to follow up on the aircraft that are really standing out and are you know, acting in a way that seems counter to what you normally see around an airport, those are the ones that I think are important to focus on. The ones that are and to do so in a timely manner. But to do, you know, a plane flew over my house and it bothered me, I think is a level of standard that, in my opinion, as staff and having observed this airport now for a number of years, I think it's unrealistic to expect that airplanes aren't going to fly near an airport. And I'm sorry to be blunt, but I think, you know, I think I would encourage people to focus on the aircraft that are louder or seem lower than normal, and have that be the focus, and to try and provide those in a more prompt way. I realize people are out in their yards and don't want to take the time to report. I mean, I respect that, I get that. But certainly that evening, you know, to try and follow up then instead of putting them all in one big data dump, as Rich put it, would be more helpful to and more effective at trying to address the issue.
Well, based on what I've heard tonight, one of the thoughts I have is on the level of the web page, one level up from where this is, like when you click on this or you click on the email link page of the city web page, maybe that would be a place where we can have a paragraph or two that says kind of these things. Here's how your noise report can be the most effective. Before you click the send an email, or before you click the link me to the database place. And then we can, because I tend to agree, and that's kind of what I was thinking too, is how do we provide some information to the person filling out the noise complaint that will guide them, help them? Because you're right. I mean, I am sure that the people complaining about this don't want to throw a complaint out there or multiple complaints out there if it does them no good. So I think the goal here is to make this the most effective thing possible. And I think what Mark said is kind of right on the point, which is we as the city want to guide, and the airport commission and so on and so forth, we want to guide the people who are making complaints to make the effective complaints, the ones that will help them and will help us. And that is, to Rich's point, getting a whole bunch of these a couple of days before a meeting, it goes into our list, but it doesn't help us address any one of these noise issues, because now it's just this bundle of noise issues. We can't go back to one particular pilot on the day it happened or the day after it happened. It's just a data dump. So I think maybe I can try to think of some language here and you know, try to get something added to this what I'll call the home page of the airport page. And maybe we can give some guidance there that would help people make more effective noise reports.
Mark, can I ask a question? Dave Lorman here. The online form itself, and this might be getting a little bit technical, but it goes into my professional background. I do this, we create similar tools where I work. Does the city just have one canned package that you use to build these types of online forms, whether it be the airport or just other city functions?
I believe the answer to that is yes. When Chair Halleck and I think it was Alder Foussard, maybe it was Alder Burke. I'm sorry, I don't remember which one of you helped with this at the onset. When this procedure, when it was desired to create an online form, we took that to our IT staff, the people I mentioned, and they directed us to this procedure because it's the program that is integrated with our website.
Yep. Okay.
I don't know more beyond that, but I know that we have a variety of other tools that are built off. It's all part of a package. Whether we could move to something else that would then require IT support, and that doesn't mean it can't be done, but it becomes a priority of something the council would have to authorize for an expendinger for a.
I'm not at all pushing in that direction. Believe me, I was just curious about some of the mechanics of it. Forms we use, it looks like a form, but it's actually technically a survey tool. So when the data goes into what looks like a form, it outputs it in the format of real survey data. So it all just sits right in a spreadsheet and can be formatted, sorted. And so, it's a data dump, but it's a manageable data dump. And as opposed to, I was just curious if this is an actual form where the data isn't dumped into, say, a database type of matrix where it can be managed.
My understanding, you go to other communities and you'll see their own customized version of this type of website. And I can't speak in greater detail about what this type is, but I think if I remember right, at least a year ago, Fitchburg had a similar interface, but maybe they changed this, or maybe it was Sun Prairie. I mean, there are certain canned packages that allow, I really can't speak to it any more than I have, other than this is what our IT staff pointed us to.
Yeah, I guess I was just curious what the raw data looks like.
They have constraints. There is a database. I requested at the time that it be exportable to Excel or something that can be manipulated.
Okay.
It also has with it the ability to map all of these data points. So there's a mapping component to it also.
Oh, okay. Well, this sounds like it's good data then.
Yeah, I mean, so it has some of the requirements because at some point I was thinking that the FAA, if they made a request for the data and the complaints, we would want to output that and be able to give it to them, right? That's part of our obligation as people that run an airport, right? We have to collect all the data for them, especially if it's an FAA complaint, because if it's the airplanes in the air, it's an FAA complaint basically, because we don't control the air.
Yeah, no, then that sounds good. I'm quite satisfied. Yeah, thanks, John. That's all I was curious. So then it is sitting in that format. Perfect.
Yeah, if you log onto the city site, it says Civic something, and I think that's the name of the software package.
Excellent.
Civic Send or Civic.
Yeah, I don't know. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So you'll get it when you first come on board. You'll see the Civic thing. So anyway, yeah, I'm okay if you think there's some language. Does somebody want to make a motion then? Is that what you would like to do, Robert? To make a motion that we add some language to provide guidance?
Yeah, I would make that motion. I don't know what that language will be yet. I probably have to mull on that a little bit and throw it out to people maybe at the next meeting. So this might not happen immediately, but I would make the motion that we add some guidance language, I guess, or instructional language to that top level airport page to guide people when filling out a noise report.
So why don't we can add this back to the agenda next cycle, and if you want to work on some language between now and then, and bring it to the commission, and we can vote on it if you feel that's necessary. Or we can just charge you with creating the language. And
Robert, I'm happy to work with you on it.
Sure, and I'm happy to do whatever the committee wants. I mean, if the committee trusts me to come up with a language, it can always be tweaked later, right? If I totally screw up on the language, we put it on the website and people say that's not good, we'll fix it after the fact too. But if people want to give me permission to go ahead and do this, then it doesn't even need to come back to the committee, or I can come back to the committee either way.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion then that Rob Burt, and in conjunction with staff, develop some new language at the front of the online form to provide guidance for the individual entering the record to accurately capture the information. I guess that would be it. So that would be my motion.
I second that.
Okay, so
Was that Lorman who said that?
Sure.
Yeah, Lorman seconded. So we have
so that Alderberg and staff develop language to help guide people on filling out an accurate noise complaint. Accurate and effective.
Guidance. Yeah, provide guidance. So we have a first and we have a second. Is there any additional discussion anyone would like to make? Okay, and so we're leaving all the systems and requirements. All options are still on the table. You can send it in paper, you can call, you can email. We're not shutting down any channels. All we're doing is we're enhancing the online website. And I'd also add to that, amend that motion to also, if possible, just to see if the idea of a guest log on is a possibility in the event that we need it. So that doesn't need to be part of the motion, but I would ask you to do that.
Okay.
So
sure.
There is no additional discussion. We have a first and a second. I'd like to call the motion to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same side. Okay, the motion carries. With that, we have completed the meeting for the night with the possibility of future agenda items, which we would review the complaint, modifications to the complaint, reporting process. If there's any changes in reports, we'll get it in the chair report and finances. And then also the tree trimming. Mark, maybe you can provide an update on that. So we can kind of keep that process alive. That's what I have today. There may be more between now and then. With that, as always, by the way, anybody that has something that thinks it merits being on the agenda, you can always email it, and we'll vet that out. And so with that, anybody like to make a motion to adjourn? I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I will second the motion.
Rob will second it. Is there any discussion on adjournment? With that, I'd like to call a vote for everybody to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side. Thank you, everybody. Have a Merry Christmas.
Same to you, Joe.